Hello everybody, time to do chapter 8, our chapter on memory. This is a companion chapter to the learning chapter because if we learn, the information has to go in our memory. If it's in our memory, it means we must have learned it. So it's a companion chapter to the other one. So with that, we're going to learn the major types of memory. We're hopefully going to learn some memory techniques that might help us to learn more effectively and recall it when we wish to. So let's jump into it. We will define memory as a system that encodes, stores, and retrieves information. The nice thing about this particular definition is that if you learn those three key components, you'll also know the 3 stages of long-term memory. A nice 2-for-1 arrangement here. Can you identify the 3 basic types of memory? If you said sensory, short-term, and long-term, you were correct. If you have trouble with sensory, you're definitely not alone. But when you study, put a little bit of extra emphasis on that first step. It's the one that will give you trouble on the test, if any of these do. Short-term memory also has another name. Do you know it? If you said working memory, you are correct. So the 3 types of memory are sensory, working or short-term, and long-term. Let's learn about sensory memory. Picture it as a holding system. For example, a sound in the environment will fade, but it's rather like your sensory memory can still hear that sound for a moment that it does not physically exist. Or to consider your visual system, perhaps a little fly is passing through your visual field, and it's rather like your eye can still see that image for a fraction of a moment when it's already passed out of your view. Let's see an example of sensory memory. Momentarily, I'm going to ask you to click one of the 2 web addresses below. If you enjoy the activity, you can click both. If one's enough, then that's fine. What you're going to see is flip art in flip books. You'll notice that the images, when they're flipped, seem to be continuous, rather like a motion picture. It's not the fastness per se that's the essential functional feature. It's that as each slide comes up, your sensory memory holds on to it. And so while the next slide is moving into view and the other one is moving out, we're not aware of it because our sensory memory is holding on to the first image. So it's a nice way to see how sensory memory, the visual type, operates. I hope you enjoyed this, and I would suggest at this point that you write down 1 or 2 of the artists or the name of the clip that you find to be the most interesting, because you're going to be asked to provide that later on for attendance and participation. This slide reinforces the idea that each sense has its own sensory memory. Some of the terms I hope will look very familiar, such as gustatory and olfactory. This particular slide prefers the term tactile as opposed to our touch or skin or somatic term. It does introduce 2 new terms, that of iconic and echoic memory. Content in our sensory memory is constantly being replaced by new content, but a small amount of it does get passed to our next memory system, that of short-term memory. This is where the memory is processed, hence the term working memory. In class, we learned that the average person can recall 7 items, hence the magic number 7. But there is great variability from person to person. Most people fall somewhere between the 7 plus or minus 2 range. The amount of time that information can be stored, according to research, a little under 17 seconds. So when we did the activity in class, you might have felt, as I kept giving you new items, some of the initial information slipping away. Let's test our short-term memory. You may have already done it in class. If so, feel free to skip this second testing. Or if you like, by all means, do it again. So I will read 10 words to you, wait till I'm done, and then write down as many as you can remember. The order does not matter, but again, wait till I'm done reading. Here goes. The words are siege, lamp, hill, happy, book, rabbit, pencil, street, wallet, and banana. You may now write. Let's see how you did. The words were siege, lamp, hill, happy, book, rabbit, pencil, street, wallet, and banana. Short-term memory is a little like sensory memory in that it's designed to let the items go. They fade very quickly. As I kept reading each new word, you probably felt the earlier words slipping away. So although most of it does fade away, a little bit of it makes its way to long-term memory, which we are now considering. Unlike the previous memory forms, long-term memory is theoretically unlimited, both in terms of quantity and length of time. Let's consider quantity. You'll never max out your long-term memory. You can max out floppy disks and flash drive and dresser drawers, but you will never max out content-wise long-term memory. Indeed, the more you learn, the actual more capacity you do have. In terms of length of time, sensory memory lasts for usually less than a second. Short-term memory, we learned, around 17 seconds. Long-term memory, theoretically anyway, not limited in time. So a person that lives to be over 100 years old may have memories that are over 100 years old. And if you believe in life after death, and I don't know if you're right or wrong, but if you're right, that means that your memories are not even limited by your earthly existence. So again, we'll define memory as the system that encodes, stores, and retrieves information. How did you do? Let's now consider the three types of long-term memory, starting with procedural. The word procedural might indeed remind you of the word procedure, and that's what it should remind you of. Your memory of how things are done. This is a very durable type of memory. In Alzheimer's, it's one of the last types of memory to go. You know the saying, once you learn to ride a bike, you never forget. Again, a very durable form of memory. Episodic probably reminds you of the word episode. These are not episodes of a TV show. These are the episodes of your life, the personal events. Semantic, your memory for facts. So if you think about our class, which one type of long-term memory do we have by far the most of? Consider that for one moment, then I will tell you. Is it procedural, episodic, or semantic? If you said semantic, you are indeed correct. Everything from Wilhelm Wundt to the famous experiment by Phil Zimbardo that we'll see later on in the course. How did you do? Probably quite well, I think, but did you actually try to think of the answer for the ball at the base of the brain, or the father of the psychology, or the type of variable? If you didn't, go back and try to do that too. Let's see how you did. Hopefully you said Wilhelm Wundt for the first one, the cerebellum for the next one, and the dependent variable for the last one. Let's try an example not covered in class. The answers will be on the next slide, but please do give it a try.